This happened a few years ago, just before the school year wrapped up. It was the final day of 8th grade, the kind of day you'd expect, full of laughter, hugs, and emotional goodbyes. Everyone was darting around the halls, collecting autographs and silly notes in each other's yearbooks. My middle school was massive, well over 1,000 students, so to make things easier, the teachers took our yearbooks and rotated them through classrooms, giving everyone a chance to sign. It was a good idea in theory, but not without flaws. Basically, anyone could write anything in anyone's yearbook. The teachers tried to keep it under control, but I still heard about a few kids who wrote some nasty stuff to people they didn't like. When I got mine back, I was excited to read all the fun messages. I flipped through the pages quickly, laughing at the goofy drawings and inside jokes. But then something strange caught my eye. A signature sat below the photo of a guy I didn't recognize at all. His name was Samuel Robinson III, a name I don't think I'll ever forget. His message was short, weird, and kind of creepy. It just said, "Hags, I'll be seeing you again." I stared at it, completely puzzled. I had never talked to this Samuel guy, not even once. But it was too late to ask anyone. School was out. I just brushed it off as a random prank or a mistake and moved on. Later that night, I had a sleepover in my basement with my closest friends, Kevin, David, and Kieran. We munched on Doritos and stayed up late playing Call of Duty. Since my parents' room was way up on the top floor, we didn't have to worry much about the noise. Sometime around 2 in the morning, we were fooling around on my dad's old rowing machine when we heard a loud knock on the storm door. It stopped us in our tracks. Who knocks on a storm door at 2 a.m.? It had to be someone trying not to wake my parents, or worse, someone who knew we were down there. It felt off. The knocking repeated in this strange, deliberate rhythm. Before I could stop him, Kieran called out, asking who was there. I wanted to smack him. He had basically just told the stranger that we were in the basement. Since there weren't any outside windows down there, it's unlikely the person knew anyone was home. Until now. After a long, eerie silence, a voice finally replied. "Come around to the back door," it said. High-pitched, oddly cheerful, almost like a friend inviting himself in. The voice definitely belonged to a teenager, and it didn't sound forced or fake either. I was starting to panic inside, but my friends didn't seem nearly as concerned. They actually looked intrigued, like this was some kind of adventure. They pushed me to check it out, and despite how nervous I was, I caved. We tiptoed upstairs, trying not to make a sound. I crept toward the back door, my heart racing. Through the narrow glass panel beside the door, I could see a dark figure standing just under the porch light. I stepped a bit closer, and when his face finally came into view, my stomach dropped. It was him. The same kid, Samuel Robinson III. My friends moved toward the door, ready to open it for him. God only knows why. But I stopped them cold. I told them I knew who he was and explained what he had written in my yearbook. That shifted their energy. Meanwhile, Sam was still outside watching us through the glass. He saw how tense I was and started waving toward the side of the house, like he wanted me to meet him at a window. You might be wondering why we weren't already freaking out more. I think it's because, at the end of the day, this wasn't some creepy grown man. It was just another kid from our school. Still, I had no plans to open that door. Instead, I went to the kitchen and cracked the window just a tiny bit. My friend stood behind me, watching Sam, walked over and leaned in close. I asked what he wanted and told him I recognized him from school. He smiled and said, "So you saw my message?" Then he introduced himself, like we were meeting at lunch or something. He told me he had always watched me from afar, and that he thought we could have been good friends. I just nodded and played along. I didn't want to set him off. But there was no universe in which I'd ever have been friends with this guy. I couldn't keep quiet, though. I had to ask him how he knew where I lived. He didn't answer, just stared. Before I could try to diffuse things, David blurted out that Sam was a creepy stalker and told him to get lost. That's when Sam's whole vibe changed. His smile vanished. He tilted his head confused, like he was trying to process what he just heard. Then his face contorted into something angry. Pure rage. He snapped, started yelling at me, saying he hated my friends, wished we were all dead, saying my ex hated me too, stuff he shouldn't have known. Then he lunged for the window and tried to force it open. I slammed it shut and locked it. He started growling, clawing at the glass, banging on it like he was trying to break in. It was terrifying. He looked completely unhinged. He was about to smash the window when, thankfully, my parents rushed downstairs, shouting. That scared him off. He bolted. I told my parents everything as fast as I could, and my dad ran outside in nothing but his boxers. He came back after a few minutes. No sign of the kid. Somehow, he had just vanished.
Oddly, my parents didn't contact the authorities. They decided to speak with the school the following morning, hoping to give the kid the benefit of the doubt. And so they did. The next day, they got in touch with the school, and that's when things took a strange turn. We found out that Sam had actually been removed from school a few weeks before the year ended. He wasn't even supposed to be there on the final day. The only reason his photo was still in the yearbook was because they had been printed beforehand, which meant he had somehow returned to campus just to leave that message in my book. That realization shook me deeply. Nobody could figure out how he discovered where I lived. The school looked into it, but nothing came of their efforts. It was as if Sam and his family had vanished entirely. The situation was quietly handled by the school, likely to avoid any unwanted attention, but the memory still stays with me. To this day, I don't know how long he had been watching or what else he might have planned. Most people believe Sam was troubled, someone going through emotional challenges, and for some reason, he became fixated on me. My parents were uneasy for weeks afterward. It's not something we talk about anymore, it's simply too unsettling. But ever since that night, living in this house has never felt the same.